or not? You got something? Am I live now, Annie? All right, good. All right, good. Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Glenn, and welcome to our Tuesday Lunch with Dr. Glenn, our live that we're trying to do every week. And today we're going to talk about something called leaky brain. And that sounds kind of creepy in a way, but what we have found out over just the last few years is that there's such a thing called leaky brain. And it's kind of like leaky gut because in order to develop a leaky brain, you actually have to develop a leaky gut first. We're going to kind of go over that today. I'm going to explain a few things. I'm going to show you what some symptoms of leaky brain are so you can kind of get an idea of maybe if you've got one or not. And then we'll also go over some things at the end that you can do to fix leaky gut and leaky brain. So as we go through this, the first thing I want to talk about is the concept of leaky brain. So what you have, and I've got a little quick video that I'm going to show you in just a minute, but the intestinal lining in your body is actually just one cell layer thick. And on one side is whatever you ate for lunch, and on the other side is your blood supply. And so your intestinal lining, it acts like a filter. And whatever you eat needs to be broken down into all of its bits and pieces, all the amino acids and all those sorts of things, so that they can be absorbed through the intestinal lining and into your blood, because they have to get into your blood for you to be able to use them and make stuff and repair tissue and make energy and all kinds of things. So think of your intestinal lining like a filter for a coffee filter. All right, so on one side you put the coffee grounds, right? And then you pour the hot water in on top of it. And what goes through and through the filter and into the pot is the coffee. And that's what you want. Now, if somebody were to come along, some mean person were to come along and poke holes in your coffee filter, then you would have a leaky coffee filter, and it would allow the coffee grounds to get into the coffee pot. And then when you went to have a drink of coffee, you'd get a mouthful of coffee grounds, and that would not be very nice. So you would have a reaction. So here's what happens. When you have a leaky gut, you have breakdown in the lining of the intestinal lining, and you can get things into the blood that aren't supposed to be there. And when that happens, your body has a reaction. And the reaction is your immune system goes nuts because now you have foreign stuff in your blood, and your immune system is supposed to go out and attack foreign stuff and get rid of it for you. So, and then what happens after that, or let me back up just a little bit. When your gut becomes irritated with various things, and we'll go over that in just a minute, you produce this substance called zonulin. Okay? Now, I'm going to actually show you a little picture of Dr. Alessio Fasano. There he is. Oh, he's sitting right on top of my head. Okay, this is Dr. Fasano. And Dr. Alessio Fasano, he discovered this stuff called zonulin. And when he was doing research at the University of Maryland back in 2000 and published it in 2001. And the research he was doing was based on trying to figure out the mechanism behind cholera. Okay? Because with cholera and other types of diseases like that, you get massive diarrhea. So what happens is when your gut becomes irritated, it makes this stuff called zonulin. And zonulin will break down the intestinal lining. And the original intent of it was if there was something in your gut, like some sort of bacteria or bug or something like that, well, you wanted diarrhea. Now, it doesn't sound like something you'd want, but actually what you want is you want to flush out the stuff that you don't want in your gut. And so this zonulin created permeability that would draw fluid from your blood into your gut and flush it out. And that's what the zonulin does. Now, Dr. Fasano published that. He's up at Harvard now. He is a world-class expert on gluten and stuff like that, and he runs the pediatric gastroenterology department at Massachusetts General, and he teaches pediatrics at Harvard Medical. So this is a top shelf guy. So that's Dr. Fasano. Now let me go back and backtrack for just a moment, and what I want to show you, well, let's do this first. Let's go here. Let's see, maybe you want to find out if this is even a show that you want to be watching. Well, here are some signs of leaky brain. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you how you get from a leaky gut to a leaky brain. But these are some pretty common things if you look at this list here. So, signs of leaky brain are depression, anxiety, brain fog. We all know what brain fog is. It's when you just don't feel like your brain's working like it's supposed to that day. Headaches and migraines. Especially if you're having headaches and you have never been able to figure out what the trigger is, something has to cause a headache. But if you have a headache problem or a migraine headache, now migraine, a lot of people think that migraine means it's just a really, really bad headache. Migraine is a certain kind of headache, and that's called a vascular headache or a blood supply headache. Those headaches, they have triggers. Things set them off. The next thing would be cognitive impairment. Now, cognitive impairment is a little different than brain fog. Cognitive impairment is when we tend to think of memory issues mostly with cognitive impairment, but it can also be directional problems, organizational problems, and things like that. Alzheimer's is a great example, or it's actually the most common example of advanced cognitive impairment. Another thing that people they don't usually think of as cognitive impairment or neurodegeneration, and that's Parkinson's disease. Now, the interesting thing about Parkinson's disease is that the two first signs of Parkinson's disease are constipation. Oh, there we go. There's a little gut connection now to a neurodegenerative disease, but it's constipation and it's loss of the sense of smell. And some other things that we are now able to attribute to leaky brain are ADHD, ADD, and as a matter of fact, I just got an article this week. Let me see if I can. I was going to pop it up for you, but I think I've already filed it away into one of my folders, where we have now developed DNA testing. All right, Dr. Sharon Hausman-Cohen out in Austin, Texas, she's sort of the pioneer on this. We now have DNA testing that we can use to identify the triggers for autism spectrum disorder. Very often they are inflammatory processes in the brain that are caused by leaky brain. So most of the people who watch my videos and things are more interested in like cognitive decline. But if you know someone who has an autism spectrum disorder, member of the family or something like that, this is stuff that applies for them as well. All right, so if you've got any of these things going on over here, depression, anxiety, this list right here, then those are signs that you may have a leaky brain. So let me show you exactly what happens when the gut lining breaks down. I'm going to take that off and I'm going to bring up, let me see if I can do this. I want to show you a video. So let me bring it up right here. Sorry, folks. Annie says we're not getting any sound. So do I need to go back and start again? So do I need to go back and start again? Just talk, don't do the video. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, folks. It looks like we had a sound issue, and I'm a doctor. I'm not a technician. So we're talking about leaky gut equals leaky brain, and we just showed a video, a little clip that showed what happens when the intestinal lining breaks down. Now, when your gut becomes irritated, the gut creates this substance called zonulin that was discovered by Dr. Fasano, and it causes the tight junctions, which is where the cells hold together, it causes them to break down. So as I was saying during the clip, when you were a kid, if you played Red Rover, send Joey right over, and you would all stand there with your arms interlocked, those were tight junctions. And if somebody came and interlocked your arms, then Joey could just run right through. And so what would happen is or when you get exposed to something that causes an inflammatory process in your gut, you end up breaking down the tight junctions. And now things can get from the gut into the blood that aren't supposed to get there. All right. Now, what happens then is the two number one triggers for creating zonulin, I put them right up here in this little box right there, are gluten and bacteria. So people don't usually think of gluten, and a lot of times actually people think, well, I eat it, doesn't bother me, so it must not be a problem for me. The truth is this, and I don't like it any more than most people do, but every single person on the planet has an inflammatory response to gluten that causes the creation of zonulin. This is no longer disputed in the scientific literature. We have proven it. It is a fact. Everyone has a sensitivity to this stuff called gluten. Now, why do some people get to eat it and don't have a problem? Because they make an enzyme called DPP4. DPP4 neutralizes the zonulin. But if you have a problem with gut irritation and you don't make enough DPP4, then you have a zonulin issue. So when the zonulin is made, it leaks into the blood and it breaks down the tight junctions everywhere your blood goes. Your liver, your kidneys, your brain. So what happens is the zonulin breaks down the barrier between the blood vessel and the brain. So now anything that's in your blood can get into your brain. I've got a little picture here. Let me pop this up. I'll just bring it right over here, and I'm going to take this one down. Okay. Zonulin triggers. And what you can see here is you see that these are cells. And you see the little black squiggly lines in between them? Those are the tight junctions that hold them together. Tight junctions are kind of like mortar in a brick wall. And if you took the mortar out, then stuff could get through the wall that's not supposed to get through the wall. So that's what tight junctions do. So what happens is this. If you make the zonulin by irritating the intestinal lining, the zonulin leaks into your blood supply, your bloodstream, just like all the other stuff that gets through there. And the zonulin goes and it breaks down the lining of the blood barrier into the brain. Now, anything that's in your blood can get into your brain. Undigested proteins, which cause an inflammatory response. Bacteria. Viruses. So maybe there's a reason why we've seen this odd escalation in certain types of brain conditions as a result of coronavirus. Yes, we have. We have seen a certain type of neurodegeneration that is linked to coronavirus. When you get viruses or any other type of proteins into your blood, and you have a leaky blood-brain barrier, that virus or piece of RNA or piece of whatever else is in there, that will leak into your brain. And when that happens, it causes an inflammatory response. See, your immune system is designed. Your immune system is designed to fight, to find, identify, and try to destroy any foreign proteins that get into you. So when you get an infection and you run a fever or something like that, that's the battle. The battle is actually raging right inside of you, where your immune system is trying to destroy whatever foreign entity there is in your body. All right? So now, what do you do if you have a leaky brain? Now remember, I showed you earlier, these are the signs of leaky brain. If you've got any of these things going on in this list right here, then we have a problem with an inflammatory response going on in the brain. And the way that it manifests is just dependent upon what kind of immune response is going on in your brain. All right, so let me show you a list of things that we can do. And we'll kind of go through this because this is really what's important. Is what are you going to do to protect yourself? Well, one of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove any kind of toxic foods from your diet. Why? Well, because toxic foods irritate your gut lining. When you irritate your gut lining, you make zonulin. When you make zonulin, you break down your intestinal lining, and the zonulin gets into your blood, and the zonulin goes everywhere in your body, and it breaks down tight junctions everywhere, including your blood-brain barrier. Now foreign particles get into your brain, and they cause an inflammation. So what are toxic foods anyway? Well, we just mentioned gluten. And like I said earlier, I don't like it any more than anybody else does. But gluten is a toxic food, especially since our wheat has been hybridized. Now, let me mention something, because a lot of people, they're sort of a bit confused about this. There is forced hybridization and there is genetic modification, right? GMO, we've all heard of GMO. Wheat is not genetically modified. Wheat is forced hybridized. And it was done by a fellow named Norman Borland. Dr. Borland, he ended up, his PhD, ended up his career at Texas A&M. And Dr. Borland actually won a Nobel Prize for hybridizing wheat in 1968. And what happened when they hybridized the wheat is the production per acre went up 10 times. Now, most of you that are my age or maybe even a little older, you remember back in the 60s, there was a lot of talk about starvation and all these sorts of things, and because there wasn't enough food. But what happened is they hybridized wheat. They genetically modified corn and rice, and they increased the crop yields exponentially, which is why there is now plenty of food. It's not necessarily good food, but there's plenty of food now. And so when you start force hybridizing foods or genetically modifying foods, you change their protein structure. And when you change the protein structure, you can say, well, it might look like this and it might taste like this, but when it comes to your immune system, it's foreign. It might taste good and it might, you might like it and it might smell great while it's baking in the oven or whatever it happens to be. But to your immune system, it is a foreign entity and you get an immune response. Other toxic foods. Dairy can be very toxic to a lot of people. Now, I'm not an anti-dairy person. Personally, I like cheese. But dairy is the most common allergen in the West. And it's because a lot of people have either a lactose, which is the sugar in dairy problem, or they have a problem with casein, which is the main protein in certain kinds of dairy. If you have a dairy sensitivity, you need to stay away from it. Sugar is also a toxic food, not because sugar is foreign, but because sugar is so very, very inflammatory. So you want to be looking out for anything that is genetically modified, anything that is forced hybridized. Another thing that you want to be very, very careful of are any crops that are sprayed with pesticides. And the biggest pesticide that is sprayed on our crops is, everybody knows what it is. I'm going to call it the scientific name, glyphosate, because I don't want them to sue me. But you don't eat things sprayed with pesticides. They're toxins. They break down your gut lining. They will give you a leaky brain, a leaky gut, which will in turn give you a leaky brain. One other thing about toxic foods is alcohol. Now, your liver has the ability to tolerate a certain amount of alcohol. 1 to 2 servings, in my opinion, is not a problem. But once you get beyond that, you have exceeded your liver's ability to break it down and get rid of it. And in a long chemical process, the stuff ends up turning into formaldehyde and other types of toxic chemicals. And what you don't need is formaldehyde in your brain. Another thing that you can do is you want to lean more towards a heavily plant-based diet. Now, I did not say a plant-based diet. I said a heavily plant-based diet because you still have to get good quality proteins from somewhere, and I don't have a problem with that at all. We eat a lot of plants in our house, but we all are also doing animal proteins. The important thing there is the quality of what you eat, not what you eat as much. But a heavily plant-based diet, what it does is it brings in a lot more fiber. Fiber is known and demonstrated to decrease inflammation and irritation levels. Fiber helps to spread out the glycemic or sugar impact of the carbohydrates you eat. But you just want to make sure that what you're eating is very, very clean. The other thing, and we were just talking to a patient this morning, is that the majority of the good bacteria that live in your gut comes from the fiber in the vegetables that you eat. Another thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you increase your healthy fats. You know, fats have gotten a really, really bad rap over the last 50 years. There is nothing in the world wrong with good, healthy fat. You want to stay away from the bad stuff, but there are some essential fatty acids, short-chain fatty acids. Butyrate is one of them. Butyrate is an essential thing. It is so important that I actually end up giving butyrate supplements to an awful lot of our patient, but that helps to repair the intestinal lining, and it is also very anti-inflammatory. You need to manage your stress. One of the things that we see is that when you're stressed out, you drive your adrenal glands into greater activity. And when you drive your adrenal gland action up, it suppresses thyroid function. And when you suppress the function of the thyroid, you compromise your ability to digest your food. Something else you can do to heal a leaky gut and a leaky brain is increase your collagen consumption. Now, you can do collagen through things like, bone broth or gelatin, or you can just get protein powders and things like that that have more collagen in them. Collagen is a great thing to use for repairing the gut lining and the tissue there. Another thing you might want to look at are what we call anti-inflammatory supplements. So what are those? Well, turmeric is one. A lot of people have heard of turmeric or curcumin. You can do the same thing. Resveratrol is anti-inflammatory. Vitamin A and vitamin D are also both anti-inflammatory. As a matter of fact, if you haven't had your vitamin D levels checked lately, you get them checked. Your vitamin D levels should be well above 50. I know the standard in North America is 30. 30 is way too low. Several years ago, all of the EU nations raised their minimum to 50, and the UK raised their minimum to 60. I like to see my patients' D levels in the 70 to 80 range. So vitamin D is very anti-inflammatory. Something else that you can do that will help to restore a leaky brain, and that's what we call HIIT, or high intensity interval training. And what HIIT training does, or interval training does, is it increases your production of a substance called BDNF. And BDNF stands for brain derived neurotrophic factor. And brain-derived neurotrophic factor, it's like fertilizer for your brain. It helps you to grow new, I did say that. It helps you to grow new brain tissue. You know, we were all taught growing up, you can't grow new brain. Well, that's not true. There are some parts of your brain that have stem cells throughout your entire life, and those cells can be differentiated into different parts of your brain. And we have actually demonstrated with volumetric MRI regrowing brain tissue, especially the part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is one of the critical parts of your brain for creating memory. The last thing I have on my list here for restoring, for a healing leaky brain is get good sleep. A lot of people, they discount the importance of sleep. You know, it's really important to get a good 7+ hours every night. And if you don't, when I talk to patients about sleep, we really bring it down into two areas that we want to talk about. You should be able to fall asleep at a reasonable hour, whatever that is for you, 10, 11 o'clock, whatever. You should be able to fall asleep at a reasonable hour within a few minutes of lying down. If you can't lie down at a reasonable time, roughly the same time every night, and fall asleep easily, we're having a hormone creation problem like melatonin, cortisol, something like that. Then you should be able to sleep through the night without waking up and laying there awake for a long period of time. So this is what I tell people. As you get older, you usually have to get up and go. Well, fine. If you get up, go to the bathroom, get back in bed, go right back to sleep, that's considered sleeping through the night. If you wake up, go to the bathroom, get back in bed, and you're laying there for 45 minutes, hour, hour and a half, and you can't go back to sleep, that is not okay. That is called reactive hypoglycemia. You are having a blood sugar regulation problem, and blood sugar regulation along with inflammation are the two main causers of cognitive decline of all types. So make sure you're getting some good sleep. And there are a lot of things that you can do to help your sleep. We actually have one of our coaches here in the office. She specializes on helping people sort out their sleep. So I'm Dr. Glenn. I thank you for being here. I'm sorry for the audio problem in the very beginning, but what we offer in our clinic, if you are interested in finding out more about what we do and whether or not we can help you or your loved one, you see my phone number there, and you also see the office's website address. We offer something called a free discovery phone call. And what that consists of is we schedule a time, you get on the phone with one of our certified health coaches and talk. Tell them your story. Let us find out more about what's going on, ask questions and so forth, and we are able to tell you if we're a good fit for you. So if you'd like to find out more about what we do, either just give us a call or you can go on the website and you can schedule a free discovery phone call, and we'd look forward to seeing you. And next week, we'll be back next Tuesday with our next Facebook Live. So thanks for being here today. Hope you have a great day and a great week. Bye.